FTX creditors will make money on bankruptcy, $1.19 for every dollar owed to creditors. The real question for me is, with the $14.7 billion worth of dollars being distributed, do you see most of that coming back into crypto?
No one since the start of Bitcoin's inception has figured out who Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, is. Speculation has really started to point to this cryptographer whose name is...
Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Tapping Into Crypto. I'm Pav.
Mate, you just stole that
and
off me.
stealing Ted's thunder, doing the intro. He was G'ing himself up for it, but it's taking too long for me, mate.
I just took in a big deep breath, ready to go, but you stole it. Look, I respect it. Pav, I'm going well. How are you?
Yeah, great, mate. Yeah.
You were a little bit sick last week, coughing your guts up in the office. So it's good to see you back in good health.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other news? You watched the NRL Grand Final on the weekend?
Yeah. I was, terrible final.
It wasn't. I wouldn't say it's terrible, but
it's the worst one. Yeah,
not very memorable in my opinion.
Yeah,
Kid Leroy did well.
Did he?
Yeah.
Were you there?
No.
But yeah, okay.
A few people from Swyftx were there because we sponsor the NRL, so they caught the game and said it was quite a good show. So
nice,
all around good effort.
How about you,
mate?
Yeah, I've got nothing to report really.
Yeah, nothing to report on my end. Just keen to unpack what's happening in the market, some of the big stories happening at the moment. So let's dive straight in, Pav. What have you got for us when it comes to Bitcoin and where it's heading?
Yeah, let's dive in. I mean, obviously, it feels a bit weird, obviously, if you have been sort of trekking this week specifically. Market's absolutely rocketed Monday morning. When, I don't know if did you notice it much? Or
Well, we had a public holiday yesterday, so I wasn't...
was it yesterday or last week? No, it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah,
yesterday. Yeah.
I wasn't on the charts as much as I usually am, but I did get a few little push notifications come through showing me that it was up. So yeah, but I haven't unpacked it too much. What are you saying?
Yeah, so we rocketed, I say rocketed, but the whole market moved quite considerably a lot. Like Bitcoin was trading very lethargically around 60K heading into the weekend last week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we just saw the markets run higher into almost 64K, if not just tagging 64K. Before violently rejecting, which is what we're seeing play out right now. So for me, a couple of key things to take away from here. Like if we were going to sort of turn around, technically these are the sort of areas where I'm personally looking for reversals. But I think they'll be short term. I mean, we have talked about Q4 being a bumper quarter. We're basically just, in my opinion, hitting into these previous highs here. The daily closed pretty shockingly, to be honest. These are the type of exhaustion candles where we start to see a bit of a turnaround. So, look, if we do get the worst case scenario here, we do start to roll over. For me, I'd be eyeing $57,500 as maybe a next target for Bitcoin, or about 59.60. It's a bit hard to say where we're going exactly from here, but right now we're all waiting for one thing, and that's momentum, in my opinion. And that's going to take a little bit of while to build that momentum. But seeing the market get gassed so easily after a rally like we had yesterday, where everyone on crypto Twitter was getting so bullish, it was not funny. And now it's all of a sudden just like, back we go down again. Like, kind of feels like it's a bit exhausting. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. But I think what I can do is let people behind the scenes a little bit on some of the analysis we do at Swyftx, and what do we look at as key metrics for understanding where are we in market cycles. So what I've got here is a weekly chart of Bitcoin, and I've got down here two factors or variants that we look into. So one of them being, we talk about on the podcast quite a bit, liquidity. So what's the amount of money in the system, as well as central bank balance sheets, which is the bottom one. What's the amount of money being floated into banks, which is then made available for lending and growth, essentially. And whenever we've gone through growth cycles or business cycles in the globe, that's when crypto's done its best. So every other bull run's been during a growth period globally. And yeah, again, sorry, just that first one, the M2, that's the money stock or money supply as well. So the two kind of meld together to give some idea of how much money is in the system essentially, because if we want prices to go up, we need money coming in, right? So for money to come into crypto, we kind of need to see it, I guess, sort of travel through the whole system and bring a bit of confidence to people. So what we can see quite blatantly obvious is the last cycle we did have. both these metrics were tracking to the upside quite significantly.
Yep.
And if we look at where we are right now, we've gone through a massive period of, I guess, this drawing down. And this is normalized data as well. So it's showing the peaks and the troughs relative to the recent past. And what we are sort of starting to see is obviously this start to trend to the upside across both these key metrics. So this is, again, like a macro longer term time frame. If you look into the past, during the period where we did see this swing from negative into positive, and then M2 start to grow positive week on week as well, generally bodes quite well for market conditions, or if we want to call it playing conditions.
Yeah.
So if we're heading,
that's when we had the bull market.
That's
in
when
2021.
Correct. Yeah. And when we really start to see this take off is really when you can start to see the bull market start to materialize. So you could say we're still at the still early footsteps or building block stages of the run starting, which, we talk so much about Q4, but really 2025 it's still a whole nother year to come. True. And if you look at a chart like this, hopefully it gives everyone a bit of perspective that as much as it gets a bit painful waiting for things in the short term, there's a lot to look forward to should these trends continue in a year's time from now. But I just wanted to check in on that quite quickly. But then turning to our traditional markets and looking at Bitcoin flows, as we like to do from the ETFs, decent start from the Fidelity guys with the first day of trading, even though we have seen Bitcoin trade a bit lower. So for me, seeing how this tracks for the next 3 or 4 days, which unfortunately will be before the podcast comes out, will be a pretty important sign of how the market feels, especially when Bitcoin's not looking too great on the chart short term. But that's pretty much it from me, to be honest. I think the only other key call out I have is we've got CPI in the US on Thursday. I don't know if I have too big of an impact, but I think it just maybe will add or to the sentiment.
What's CPI? Just for
Consumer Price Index. So that's the inflation metric that they're tracking in the US at the moment. So right now, all that's been sort of touted as being under control. So I don't know if it's going to have that much of an impact on the markets, to be honest.
Okay.
If anything, it might, if the markets do pick up, provide a bit of positive tailwinds that, hey, look, inflation's down and the market's looking good. This is all systems go. This is good. But yeah, we'll wait and see. There's not really too much else to call out on the macro front from me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, mate, I want to unpack a little bit of Uptober. We've thrown around that term a little bit in the recent few weeks, but I really want to show like what that means and where we could potentially go, particularly this month and then also in Q4. I know you also said 2025 is another whole year, but I want to unpack the next sort of couple of months and where things could go. So firstly, I think the first thing to call out is historically when September closes in the green, we see October, November, and December, or Q4, do so too. So the average return in Q4 after we've had a green September, so I think we were up around 7% in September. So the average, if we have a green September, is 170% up. Now, that also takes into account that the years in 2011, 2012, the early years of Bitcoin when it was a much smaller asset and the returns were much larger. So you kind of got to average that out. We probably won't see gains like that in this quarter, so just keep that in mind. But over the 10 to 14 years that Bitcoin's been around, when we've had a positive September, it's been really positive for the Q4 period. So good to see, but I guess we had a bit of a rough start to October, or what we say Uptober, and I think a lot of that was triggered by the conflict in the Middle East. Like, we're not going to unpack that too much, but that
I know
definitely...
you want to.
Nah, mate, I'm staying out of politics for the time being.
Hanging your hat up.
Yeah, sticking to crypto. So I think that definitely had an influence, but if you look at the previous data from historically, you'll see that Bitcoin typically bottoms out 3 to 4 days into October before it has a run up of an average on like 30 to 40%, and it actually dipped below 60k US on the 3rd of October before running higher. So before we're at about 63 to 64k. So we're actually positioned pretty similarly to we have in previous years, particularly in election years or halving years, whatever you want to call it. And then, that's the other thing we want to touch on as well. Election years, we've touched on it before, the fact that elections typically drive more volatility in the market. Generally post-election, as you'll see from this Twitter post we have up here. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, we also have a YouTube channel if you want to come check us out there. But I'll try and break it down for you. So looking at previous election years, which also have been the Bitcoin halving years, so 2012, 2016, 2020, and then of course this year, 2024, we've seen a huge run up in the price of Bitcoin following the US election. And that's regardless of the outcome. So obviously we had Trump in 2016 and then Biden in 2020. So it's regardless of if you're looking at a Democrat versus Republican point of view, it's typically had a positive effect regardless. So all things are pointing in the right direction, but of course, nothing is guaranteed in these markets. There is a lot of geopolitical things happening at the moment that may impact things further. So you got to always be cautious and keep an eye on those things as well.
100%. But so far, it seems like the seasonality aspects that we've spoken about throughout, I guess, almost seems like the last year and a half, it seems to be heading in the direction we thought it would so far, but we're still waiting to be proven wrong, right? So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, Daniel, our video producer here, was just getting a bit impatient about, when's this bull market going to happen? I'm sick of waiting around. And I know it can get a little bit tiring and frustrating when you're just waiting and nothing seems to happen. Like, we have a little bit of positive price action, then it comes down, and it just doesn't seem to be having that huge leg up that we're used to in previous markets. But I still think we're due for that, and I think it's going to happen in Q4 should all things play out and play into hand, and we don't get any big black swan events.
Well said, mate. And for those playing along at home, the election day in the US is 27 days and 12 hours away. So November 5th is, I guess, what we're waiting for in terms of that catalyst that you're sort of speaking about there, Ted. So
big month ahead. Interesting mix of movers in there. You could say it's majority of it is red, but some green in there as well. I think, I wanted to point out Sui's just been one that has been nailing it. Like, I know I probably talk about Sui every week these days, so
no one minds.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a few Sui fans, I hope. But yeah, it seems to be the one that just continually is outperforming the market. So it's really good to see from there. And then also Aptos and Say, which are kind of following in the footsteps of Sui, similar sort of new tech layer 1 blockchains. They seem to be doing well as well on the back of that. But then also meme coins. Meme coins continues to be a narrative.
Let's talk about the real narrative here.
Let's talk about the strong fundamentals.
I've been talking about PopCat for quite some time now. And I quite like this one in the sense that I think we go back like 3 months ago, we talked about Whiff and Bonk had the same pattern where they both traded higher before centralized exchange listings. Okay. Because they have to accumulate it to get the liquidity to then be able to list it on their exchanges. So I do wonder, like, if PopCat's going to be the first cat coin in the recent time that's we're seeing a lot of this positive price movement. What if it is preceding some major exchange listings? Because
what's it currently listed on?
It's listed on a few exchanges, but I don't believe it's on like the likes of Binance.
Yeah, Binance typically drives the most volatility.
Yeah, so I could be wrong there. There could be some other major exchanges that already have it, but look, it's been great.
I know for one Swyftx list PopCat, so it's worth calling out.
Yeah.
But yeah, what makes PopCat different from the other meme coins? I know if you go on its website, its mouth just pops open.
Yeah, you get points if you click. Look, it's one of those things you have to follow the community, see what the fundamentals of the asset are doing. Because the one thing meme coins have that your other assets don't have, there's no VC lockups or people that are going to dump on you. It's basically you and a community either nominating that this is the meme coin of their choice or not. It's like being in a group chat with your mates and everyone's sharing a GIF. And you see the same one over and over again. Like, people choose a certain GIF, right? To like represent culturally what's funny right now. So, look, laugh at that what you will. But I mean, that one has been showing, even from a technical perspective, like some great SRs, flips, so support resistant plays, where it's just constantly testing and moving higher every time. Really heavy trend to the upside. But the other one to call out there also, FTT token. Yeah. The FTX, notorious FTX token. What do you reckon about that?
Mate, I think we've got a little story to segue into.
We
do. You could say it's the top performer of the last sort of 7 days.
Interesting.
So I'm interested to hear why that is, Pav.
Yeah, should we just jump straight to that?
Let's do it.
All right, so there was a judgment made, I believe it was just today, for those listening on Thursday, this was Tuesday today, that FTX creditors will make money on bankruptcy, $1.19 for every dollar owed to creditors. So obviously a lot of people have been on the sideline, especially since I think Bitcoin's up about 248% since the FTX failure occurred in November of 2022. But big win, a lot of cash being distributed. So these aren't assets in kind, they're being credited with money. So, I mean, the real question for me is, with the $14.7 billion worth of dollars being distributed, do you see most of that coming back into crypto? Or
well, I'm still trying to understand it. So They said the company says it has collected between 14.7 billion and 16.5 billion worth of property that it plans to distribute to creditors. In terms of property, is that referring to?
It's different assets that they've acquired. So FTX had like a range of investments. They had a bunch of assets, I think, that were there but not there, but they've worked that out and pulled out money.
Right.
Like, for example, there was a lot of FUD about FTX owning a bunch of Solana they were dumping on the market, etc. So like, once all of those assets have been sold down on property, they also had like a massive stake in Anthropic, which is the Amazon-backed AI agent, which I think that made about $1 billion of the settlement piece. So now that all the dollars been sorted, I guess they're just waiting on distribution. Which I don't think they've given an exact date on when the distribution is taking place, but I imagine it's this year.
So if I lost, say, $100, I'm going to get $119 back.
If you've gone through the proceeding and done the claim and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's really good news for anyone who was caught up in it, and hopefully they've followed the proper proceedings to get that back. But it's good to see that there was, I guess, somewhat of a happy ending to this story. And
well, you're getting something back, right? Like, I think a lot of people are quite salty. Obviously, if you had Bitcoin from back then, you would have been up double, triple what you are now. So, but it is what it is, right? So what can you do?
Very true.
This one's a bit of an interesting one.
So this one's on the Crypto News Australia website, and it's not so much insightful, more just an interesting story that I wanted to unpack. So no one since the start of Bitcoin's inception, when was that? 2009, has figured out who Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, is. Like, there has been a lot of speculation that there was some Japanese software engineer in the US. There was more speculation that it was Hal Finney, who died in the early 2010s or teens.
So. Yeah.
But now there's HBO have put out a documentary that really goes into who possibly was the real Satoshi Nakamoto, and speculation has really started to point to this cryptographer whose name is Len Sassaman.
Yeah.
So Len was cryptographer. Am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
And he was obsessed with privacy and other things like that. And the key thing to point out here is that Satoshi Nakamoto's last communication. So he used to post on forums and social medias under the alias Satoshi Nakamoto, and his last post ever was in 2011. Now Len sadly passed away in 2011, just before or just after his Satoshi Nakamoto's last post.
Yep.
So a lot of people are now pointing the finger at this, as this was Len, who is the real Satoshi. Now, if you actually look at the wallet, Satoshi's wallet has over 1 million Bitcoin in it. So about 5% of the total supply of Bitcoin, which is worth about $70 billion in US.
Crazy, right?
So it makes Satoshi one of the richest people in the world.
Yep.
But if it was Len, obviously no one's there to cash that out, or it could be permanently there forever. So I want to understand from you, Pav, do you think if we had definitive answers on who Satoshi is, whether it's Len or whether it's someone else, that's a good thing for the market? Do you think it could potentially have a negative impact on the market?
I guess it all depends, but I mean, I don't think it makes that big a difference, right? And I don't think people need to know. I don't know. It feels like this is one of the things that it's so out of anyone's hands that no matter if we knew who it was, they can't come in and change it, right? Like it's kind of set in stone. It'd be cool to know, but like it's wouldn't say no to knowing.
I actually prefer to keep it a mystery.
You like the veil of secrecy?
I like the mystery because Bitcoin, as it grows year on year, and potentially could become a global asset that countries are using to like for the likes of the US selling our national debt. El Salvador is using it as legal tender. I think that'll continue to grow, and the fact that it was created by this mysterious unknown person or group of people makes it very cool in my opinion.
You're saying it's like Santa Claus for adults trying to
grow
their portfolios.
I guess you could make that comparison. I'll give you that one, Pav. But if you go on Polymarket, the odds on who is Satoshi is at about 36% Len Sassaman, and the next person is Hal Finney, who I mentioned before. He's at around 6.3%. So everyone seems to be pretty confident that it is this Sassaman bloke.
Okay.
Another thing, just on the Polymarket thing. So obviously political polls are showing that Harris is in the lead, but on Polymarket, a lot of people are placing bets that Trump will be in the lead. So Elon Musk has come out and said Polymarket's actually more accurate because it's people putting down bets and putting down money. So interesting take from the bloke there. I think Elon was at one of Trump's rallies recently. So
Yeah, he
he's
was,
come out in
yeah.
support.
Yeah, look at that, 53.4%.
Yeah, so that's very different from what you'll see on like the New York Times poll
It's a
and
good.
things like that.
I mean, everyone's this didn't really occur to me, but I mean, everyone's been obviously gaslighting crypto for like, oh, what's the use case? I mean, well, if you have a completely clear and objective way to measure how people feel about politics, that's not colluded by some sort of media corporation.
True.
Surely that's a pretty good first start for the
True.
use case for crypto.
I'm not sure if that's a first start, but it's definitely a use case.
It's a use case,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Right now, like if you're trying to get a proper, like Elon makes a point there, I reckon. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. Yep. Cool. Let's move on.
Let's
move on to the.
Oh no, we got tipping still.
Yeah, we got tipping, which I know you're trying to move past quickly. But
Yeah, look, we both lost technically, so this is what I get for following you into the.
Yeah, look, you just can't seem to nail it, can you, Pav?
Well, I was right in a way that if I just went stablecoins, I would have beat you. But look, I thought I'd what do you call it? Humor you and.
Yeah.
Because I was going to play boring. You remember?
Oh, okay. Here come the
Oh,
excuses. Come on, break it down. What'd you buy last week?
It was BTC. Oh no, sorry, I went all risk. It was TIA, Say, and Bonk. So Bonk and Say were the ones that drew me down the most. TIA was actually up on that one. So finished up the week on just a little over $9,000. Sorry. And yourself?
Yeah, I actually went more conservative route this week. Not as conservative as your stablecoin strategy, but I went BTC, Sol, and IMX. BTC and Sol probably kept me in the mix there. And got me the win.
Yep.
IMX not so much.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, we were both down on the week, so it would have been better to take the conservative stablecoin approach. However, this week I am going for more of a risk approach. I think, following the October trends that we were looking at before, I think we're going to have a big week. So I'm going for Bonk, Jupiter, and Ondo. Now, these are all coins I personally own. Now, I don't know if there's going to be any narrative in particular that's going to play out this week. I just like those coins, and I think they have strong use cases and strong fundamentals. And so I'm going to back myself into the ones I already hold in my personal funds. So that's my strategy.
Nice, mate. I'm actually just going to do the same because at this point, just why not? So I'm not going to deviate too much from last week. So I'm going to go Celestia, so TIA again, top performer last week, and I see some room on that one to grow if the market holds up. Say as well, just again, lagging Sui potentially, and then with I've just seen some great strength on that particular meme coin in recent weeks. So
Yeah,
I'll follow you into the darkness, mate.
I saw in our little prep sheet before that you had Bitcoin, USDT, and USDC. So you just changed your mind.
I did.
Was it me calling out the October thing?
Pretty much, you got to my head.
Yeah,
You rattled me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in your head, mate.
Yeah.
3 wins in a row will do that too.
And I will be down again next week for everyone listening, so it's fine.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
he's broken. He's a broken man.
A little sleep the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
It's getting to me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, guys. We'll catch you next week. And remember to check us out on YouTube and Instagram and things like that.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.